My name is Renée Lavail. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, an ASEX certified sex therapist, and an approved clinical supervisor. I've been working in specifically around sex and sexual health for probably the past 13 years. And really, once I started working in there, it became very clear you just need more and more and more information and more education, which is how I ended up over at the Sexual Health Alliance. I have again, worked in community mental health for 15 years. I actually retired from community mental health, and this past December to open my own practice, the Clinical Assessment Group in Albuquerque Sex Therapy, which is obviously just specializing in sex, sexual health in New Mexico. As a licensed marriage and family therapist, ethics, bias, objectivity, those have been, topics that are super loud in school, and they're loud in supervision when you first get started. So these are just themes that have constantly come up in very general ways. My first dip into actual sexual health work was working with therapists who work with youth who had victimized other youth. And so obviously, we're all kind of trying to figure out, how to work with these kiddos, doing the research, figuring out what the data actually says about working with these kids and these families. And it became super clear, super fast, as soon as you start working there, that there is so much bias and so much lack of objectivity from stakeholders and people who are tasked with the care of these children and these families. As therapists, the therapy was first, taking care of the family was, key and critical. But the next thing that we had to do all the time was be continually educating judges and lawyers and state workers and child advocacy workers and parents, and that sense of watching people really lose their objectivity, people that are licensed clinicians or professionals that review a situation. And that's what I was running into. So this idea of how can we be the people that are advocating for understanding your bias, being ethical in how you treat these situations, and figuring out how to be objective is why these themes is so loud and so important. Whether you're a coach or a consultant, if you are somebody who works with the public, if you are somebody where people are coming to you asking for help or support or guidance of any kind, we are obligated to do this work before we ever get into a room with them. I think a large takeaway is, again, knowing that this group is not just therapists who have these really clear ethical guidelines that we're bound by, that we have coaches and consultants and people that just want to be advocates for people working in sexual health and helping people in our community, that the work has to come from us first, that you really need to do the work internally. Like if you're walking into a therapy room and you don't understand what bias might be showing up, if you hear somebody say something and you don't have a clear sense of where you're at, just that how to be intentional about those underlying things so that you can be really present for the topics that are showing up in there. And ethics comes into play in this way because, as we're understanding our sort of bias, which is not a new topic for people. And I know even at the Sexual Health Alliance, there's always somebody that's bringing in something that really speaks to this topic, which is amazing. I'm going to try and come at it from a framework that conceptualize it through this lens as a way to give people sort of a foundation. And similarly with ethics, I think that, again, therapists that have clear ethical guidelines that they're following because of their licensure or because of who they are, coaches and consultants may not have that same type of thing. So how do you start your practice from a place of, deciding what ethical decision-making models you would come from? When you face a dilemma, what do you do with that? How to be really clear and intentional before you ever start working with the public. The title of my topic is from, icks and oohs, really getting people to think about that spectrum of bias, right? We're so used to talking about the icks over here of no, can't hear any of that. That's awful. Just stop talking right now. But the other side of that are the people that over-identify, that go in there so amazingly, not just in support of, but everything you're saying is amazing. Everything you're saying is great. Everything you want to do, client, is wonderful. Well, that's not objective either. There's some ethical dilemmas in that space when you show up that way. And you think about how, exciting it is to work in this field. But again, That's the work that we have to do. For me, those are sort of the primary takeaways, is to give people some foundational way to think about these topics and just get them to think about, where they fall on that spectrum of objectivity as they're working with this population. I am excited about the thing I am always excited about when I come to SHAW conferences, and that is just being in a space with people that are just there to talk about these complicated yet fun things, these things that people have deemed as awful or scary or not professional, all of this thing, and watching this room full of 80 people. It seems like every time you come to a SHAW conference, there's more and more people there, and just looking at this diverse room and feeling okay, great, this feels good, and I'm going to learn from them and their experiences. And that always excites me, going in there. That fear of the echo chamber that they always talk about, in politics, right? That if you just surround yourself with like-minded people, that you're at risk of missing some things. This is not that. This isn't a chamber full of people that are saying all the hard stuff that you don't typically get to say, and having people challenge it, and having people fact check it, and having people come at it from a different perspective. So it's how to be in the right kind of echo chamber in some ways. I'm just really excited by that. Always have been since I found SHAW.